Hello, my name is Tim Lee Healy, and in this video, we're going to be building our first case, creating some labels, and just generally poking around a little bit in Quincy with the hope of getting you some familiarity and some confidence in order to play more aggressively by yourself. Anyway, what are we going to do? We're going to create a case. We're going to process some data. We'll create a few labels and bookmarks. We'll label a few things, and we'll do some minimal basic review. So let's hop into the tool and do all that stuff. So I already have Quincy open. The first thing we need to do is create a case. We can do that in two places, either in the process data widget or in the admin widget. I'm going to show you how to do it in the admin widget, but I'm actually going to do it in the process data widget. So let me just open up the admin widget here. Go to cases. You can see I've got a ton of cases here. But if we wanted to create a new case, it's as simple as just clicking here and then entering the case name here and clicking save, and that will create a case for us. Like I said, I'm not going to do it here. Instead, I'm going to go to the process data widget and do it there. To do it here, you just make sure you're on new case, and we again create our case. So we'll call this, what do we call this? First case. And then we just go ahead and create case. If we wanted to add a path, we could do that. If we don't add a path, as we didn't here, it will use the default path we set up at installation. So you see, it doesn't take too long to create a case, at least not on my system. This is a laptop, so you should at least have that kind of speed. Anyway, it shows us the case, the path it gave it, the case ID, the UUID, which I don't know what is. It's always zeros in my system anyway. Creator on the administrator here, the case size is 0. I can also set case attribute, or excuse me, set log attributes and set case information here. None of this is worth doing right now, and all of it has videos dedicated to it, so I'm just going to skip over it. So we've created our case now. Now we need to add some data to it. To do that, we just click here on add, and we go to wherever it is we have data, which in my case is the C drive under the Quincy folder. Where am I? And then I have this evidence folder underneath my Quincy folder. And I'm going to go ahead and add this marketing drive, which has some subfolders on it. It's basically just loose files, nothing exciting one way or another. Going to go ahead and select that. Now we can click on it and check to make sure it got the file media type correct, which it did, file or folder. You can also load an image if you have an image, or you can load a folder of images, but we're just going to stick with loose files for right now. When we do that, we want the file or folder option. Then we need to select processing options. You can see it's red here, which means I already have some selected. But let's just click into that and look at what we've got selected. Right now, just MD5 hash, so nothing very exciting there. Let's add a little bit more meat here. File signature analysis, index search, and then we'll create thumbnails for graphics. I mean, there's a whole video on the processing, Quincy processing options, and I would recommend you guys view that if you're interested in what all this stuff does. But this is good enough for what we're doing right now. We're going to go ahead and click OK. Then we're going to click on Process Data. We don't have the email system set up, but if we did, we could enter our email here and it would email us when we are complete. Let's just go ahead and click Proceed without email. And you can see it submitted the job in case 43. Now, before I move on, generally I wait until it goes from the submitted state to in process state. That should happen in the first minute. Let's see if it's already happened. In progress. Perfect. It's happened. So now I'm going to pause the video because there's no reason to watch it. And then we'll come back when we're done and we've processed our data. Okay, so I'm back. It completed processing. We can check what it did here by expanding this, and you can see it enumerated 101 files. It processed them and it indexed them. So as a quick review, what we did, we created our first case. We then added the marketing folder to it, and we processed that. So now let's see the fruits of our labor, if you will. We come up here to our case selection area, and we can select it, and we called it first case. And then let's go ahead and just select on it, and this will bring up that data that we just processed into the grid. Now, the grid is where most of the action happens in Quincy. It lists all the files in the case, all the files responsive to whatever filter you have applied, all that kind of stuff. So you can see what we've got here, some pretty, again, I told you straightforward files. They're mostly marketing stuff related to Quincy. So let's go ahead and do the two other things we said we would do, which was create some labels, create some bookmarks, label some stuff, and just a general review. So creating a label is very simple. There are actually several ways to do it. We're going to do it in the most simplistic way right here. And we'll just do first label. And we go ahead and, oh, excuse me, this is not where you do it. I'm mental mistake there. You want to click this add button. This is where you select labels. So let's go ahead and click here. And then let's do first label. And then we go ahead and click create the label. It's just that easy. It'll tell us over here it's creating the tag. And then it says the tag is created. And we can see that right here now. So if we want to label some documents, we can go ahead and click on them like this, easy peasy, and then come here and select that label. And we can do, click here to apply label. It will ask us, do we want to keep the families together? How do we want to do this? I'm just going to go ahead and label what we asked for and say, don't ask again, and click save. And it begins the tagging job. And notice this red highlighting here. It's a little bit distracting. It's meant to be. What it tells you is that the grid, which shows that your document's here, is not necessarily in sync with the database. The reason for that is the labels were applied locally and not yet in the database. At the same time they're applied locally, they're sent to the database. But if you're labeling, let's say, 20,000 documents, that can take several minutes. You have to wait till it says, you see just right there, it's a tagging job done. That means the database is now in sync, and now if we refresh our grid, we'll see that the line will go away and our labels will still be there. If the labels disappeared, I'll explain that in a second. If the labels disappeared, it would be because we were out of sync. Now, that error we saw that popped up there really quickly, that is just, you can ignore that. That's because I have no filters and I'm seeing the root task bookmark. And it's trying to view the root task bookmark, which of course it can't do. But let's just ignore that. If you see that error, just ignore it. It's almost always because you have a non-viewable file as the first item in your grid. Okay, so we labeled those. Now let's try to do a similar thing with bookmarks. Again, we want to create a bookmark, so we're going to start by hitting our plus. We have no bookmarks created, so it only offers us, and I'm logged in as the administrator, so it's only going to offer us the shared folder. If we wanted to click on the private, we could also create it under administrator, but let's do shared for now. And we'll do first book. And we'll enter a comment for here. This is our first bookmark. And we go ahead and enter that. And that's going to go ahead and create a bookmark for us. And let's wait till that is done. Now let's check it to see if it's there. And it is our first bookmark right there. So now let's go ahead and select that. And let's add these three objects that we've already labeled to this bookmark. We go ahead and click there. It says adding objects. And three objects added, and we're good to go. These have been added to that first bookmark we just created. So the last thing I want to show you for our first little review video here is actually viewing documents. So to do that, let's close the grid and let's open our viewer. And actually, let's open the grid back up. It doesn't make sense to view non-documents. All right, and let's look at one of these pictures that we have here. We just click on it, and it will load that image. And it loads it into the graphic tab, and we can go look at it, and we can utilize any of these different functions in the graphics tab. Actually, interestingly enough, this is an image from Quincy, so it's a little bit confusing. But we could go ahead and click through our documents and view them in the viewer. And I've shown you how you can label documents and bookmark them. So that is really very, very simple, very, very little to sort of, but hopefully enough to get you started playing around and get you able to develop some of your own confidence. So that's all I hope to accomplish here. Hopefully that was helpful, and thank you very much.